Good morning, folks. This is Randy with Snap Judgments. I am up early on a Saturday morning, August 22nd to be specific, the morning of the second preseason game. And I am up to shoot a full schedule preview for the Patriots. Um, Now, this is a video I probably should have done a couple weeks ago, but as you all know, I have been extremely busy with real life stuff and just haven't been able to do that over the course of the summer. So, fortunately, the summer's kind of downtime for football, and it just all kind of aligned pretty well for me. So, I want to talk about the Patriots' schedule and, the idea um, that they're going to be a regression candidate this year, that they might fall off, etc. Look, I just don't see that. I think they have a vastly improved offense from where they were last year. I think their offensive line has developed not only with the addition of AVT, but also with just kind of the natural development of Will Campbell at left tackle. I don't think he's ever going to be one of the all-time greats, but I think he could be very solid. Um, and then Jared Wilson moving back over to his natural possession at center. Also on Wayne Yu and Morgan, just kind of getting to know each other a little bit better and kind of getting a feel for each other a little bit better. Look, they're two experienced vets, um, but still, it's a season together. The offensive line is it's a unit, right? And the better they work together, the better it's going to be. So any amount of experience they're going to get together is just going to be natural growth, right? So I think that offense is vastly improved. I don't think we really lost anything on defense. Yes, we had a few players leave, Jalen Hawkins and Caleb Von Chason, for instance, but we immediately replaced them with either an equal level player or what I think is an improvement in Byard being signed as a safety. I think he's a vast improvement over Hawkins. Hawkins had one good year. Hawkins is not much younger than Byard, okay? I believe Hawkins is 29 years old. Um, and then Draymond Jones coming in. It's not only uh, even replacement level player, but it's also a guy who clearly they feel fits the scheme better, right? Because Jason could have been had. Okay, he had a great time here last year. He clearly enjoyed himself. He signed a contract for something like 12 million a year. They could have matched that, and they chose not to. They could have matched that and brought Draymond Jones in. They chose not to. Um, so, vastly improved offense, just seriously upgraded weapons, and a developing offensive line in front of him that's only getting better. And then, at least as good a defense, with Zach Core entering his second year as defensive coordinator, like first official year as defensive coordinator, right? Play caller, etc. Again, I feel like that can only get better. So, will their schedule be a bit harder than last year? Yeah, of course. It definitely will. I mean, last year was, look, you can't, no matter how much of a Patriots fan you are, you can't deny the numbers. Last year was the easiest schedule I think I've heard since like 1979. Um, it was an easy schedule. It is what it is. You can only beat the teams that are in front of you. Um, But I just don't think that that means that there's going to be some sort of drastic fall off this year. I see the formula for long term success, okay? And I mean, as we come into this, like, the Patriots, they're no longer being evaluated as a rebuilding curiosity, right? They're the defending AFC champions. Whether or not people think that's um, legitimate or whatever. There are people out there, Broncos fans specifically, who still want to discredit the Patriots for their Super Bowl run last year. But they are defending AFC championships. They have a better offense. They're building around a young, potentially superstar quarterback, and they have very legitimate expectations this year. The question is not whether or not they can compete anymore. And I think that's like an important difference between now and a couple years ago, right? I mean, this past week has really highlighted things for how far this squad has come. Because 2 years ago, we had inter squad practices with the Philadelphia Eagles, and it literally looked like the JV had walked on the field during practice, not even with the varsity, but with the college down the street. Okay, it was awful. The Patriots were just, they were outclassed, they were out talented. They just didn't have, they weren't on the same level. And this week, the Patriots clearly won day one of joint practices. The day two was a bit more of a back and forth. Um, but the Patriots overall looked better throughout this week than the Philadelphia Eagles did. And that's not just the quarterback either, right? Because a lot of people give a lot of this credit to Drake. But it's not just about him, especially when you're out there in practice. You're talking about the full team, the whole depth chart. Um, now there were some aspects that the Eagles looked better. We're not going to get too deep into it, but overall the Patriots won the week. Um, so they're going to come into this season with some real expectations. All right, so here is my final prediction for the Patriots. All right, well, actually, let me start by saying I really hope to see some of the starters out there tonight. Tonight's going to be the second preseason game. It's against the Eagles. We've seen a lot of other teams play their starters for some period of time. And during the first preseason game, we saw the crowd actually get really into it looking for starters. Late in the game, A.J. Brown and Drake on the sideline playing around about starting. I'd be surprised if we didn't see the starters for at least one series. Like, I feel like Vrabel is the type of guy who's going to give A.J. Brown the chance to show out against his old team. And they're not going to play him any other time unless they both make the Super Bowl. So let the guy get out there, let him slam dunk on his old teammates a couple times, and then pull them off the field. I wouldn't be surprised to see him for a quarter, at least a series. Let's see those starters for at least a series, maybe a quarter. Simply put, they're not going to get out there during the last preseason game, most likely. Starters typically haven't in the past. I know the three preseason schedule has shaken up kind of how things are done. Um, but I'll tell you what, I don't want the first in-game action that the starting unit sees to be at Seattle in Seattle, right? Last time we saw them walk off the field together was in at versus Seattle, not at Seattle, but it was in San Francisco. I mean, it might as well have been for us, right? And then the next time they come back is when they're getting the trophy or the rings or whatever. Um, let's not have that be the case. Let's let them get out there in front of a home crowd for a series, a quarter, whatever, and let us have a great time with it, right? Let them have a great time with it. Then go sit them during the third preseason game. Let Baron Morton lead all the rookies out there and all the depth players and so forth, and let them have a good time. This week, I want to see Drake May, AJ Brown, the starting unit, everybody out there on both sides of the ball for a quarter. That's what I would want to see if I had my druthers. Um, anyway, getting into this, look, my overall prediction for the Patriots, and I'm going to start it off right off the bat with the overall record, 13-4 again this year. Okay, not again. Sorry, they were 14-3 last year. 13-4 this year. Slight regression. Um, I just I see a path to a lot of wins here that other folks don't, and people see this uh, easy schedule as a bad thing. I see it as a great way to kind of get settled into a system, right, during real game action, and then and grow from there. Okay, so I see them as ascending and climbing this ladder, not like, hey, we had easy and now we're going to play regular, or real football teams, and now we're just not going to be able to hang. I don't see it that way. I know a lot of people see the schedule again as a reason for regression. I just don't. And let's take a look at that full schedule here. All right. Now you'll see right now, I don't I don't see it the same as everybody else, right? Because I see us starting off with a win in Seattle. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. But you're going to hear everybody else talk about a loss in Seattle. I'm not talking about a loss in Seattle. I don't expect a loss in Seattle. I expect we start out strong with a win. And I really kind of see Seattle as a regression candidate, to be honest. I think that that's where it starts for them. Um, then we come back home, play the Steelers. There's a win there. Jacksonville, in Jacksonville, tight win there. Right on through the bye week where we 8-2 entering the bye week. That's a great way to do it. They come out of the bye week with a tough loss in Los Angeles, but then finish out the rest of the season 5-1 for 13-4 overall record. Um, and let's get into it. You can see the four losses: Bills, Bears, Chargers, Chiefs. All quality teams. Several of them away games. I That's where I see it happening. Okay, that's where I see the struggles happening. Um, right here, Seattle. We're going to start this game out, and we are going to start this game out, start the season out with a win. Like I said, I just think that there's been a lot of things happening, like in Seattle over the offseason. Okay, um, Seattle had a lot of losses. All right. Defensive talent, Boye Mafe, Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen. We've seen Tariq Woolen on the field this week rather, in joint practices. Kenneth Walker walked out the door. All right. He was a Super Bowl MVP, and they don't have a replacement. Okay. They're Jadarian Price already hurt. And sorry, I'm blanking on the other. Uh, Zach Charbonnet. Sorry. Zach Charbonnet is still out. So they are relying on, I believe, Halani is his name. And that's pretty much it in the run game. Jadarian Price already injured, right? Zach Charbonnet hurt, like I just said. And Kenneth Walker walked out the door. So your run game is relying on wildly inexperienced players and just players that aren't, you know, NFL starting caliber running backs. Um, your offensive line still has the same issues that it had last year, um, where the right guard was a weak spot, and it's here's the thing: is the offensive line was a problem in 2024. Then last year, 2025 comes in. Clint Kubiak comes in as the offensive coordinator. Those of you who are familiar with me know exactly what's happening right now, right? The second I turned on my camera, these two cats decided they were going to tear around the house and cause all kinds of havoc and chaos because that's how this works. My apologies if you hear it in the background. Anyway, 2024, the offensive line was a problem. They draft Gray Zabel, um, bring in Clint Kubiak, and with him, he brings Andrew Janoka. Okay. He is an offensive line guy. He was his offensive line guy in New Orleans. He was his offensive line guy in Seattle. In both places, the offensive line looked better under him. The first hire he made was to bring him to Vegas with him. So there he walks out the door. You've got a developing left guard in Gray Zabel. Now, people liked him. I liked him. I still like him. But he's still a developing young left guard, and you don't quite know what he's going to become. And then your center is an undrafted teammate of said left guard who may be there primarily because of his familiarity. Your right guard is still Anthony Bradford, I believe. Your offensive line hasn't gotten better, right? I mean, people look at the Patriots as a regression candidate, but the Patriots built up, they improved across the board. The Seahawks, to me, they didn't. Okay, the Patriots didn't lose any coaches. The Seahawks lost their offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, and a couple others like scattered throughout the ranks behind them all. Right? Um, they lost an end, a safety, a cornerback, a starting running back, Super Bowl MVP. This is prime regression stuff, right? So I just see it not be like the offense. I don't think the offense is going to be the same. I don't. I, I just think it's going to be a problem. I'm still not a believer in Sam Darnold. I will probably look. It's going to take a bunch to get me to be a believer in Sam Darnold. I'm not going to lie. I've seen too much bad shit from him over the years, but it's just I think the Seahawks are a prime candidate for regression. I think it starts in week one. And I would not be so fast to go picking against the Patriots right out of the gate. I think that they are going to be a vastly improved team this year. I think that they are going to come right out of the gate firing. I think they're going to be super motivated to get out there, look good, and especially against the Seahawks team, right? I mean, if you're AJ Brown coming in, don't you want to be like, look, see, us guys, we're the difference between that loss and that win. You know, that's just to me, it's a big time type of, not a revenge game, kind of, right? But you want to ruin the party. You want to go in there and ruin the party. So I just think that I think the Patriots are going to start off strong in week one. I think they start off with a win, and I think they come out of this 1-0. All right. Now we've got them going against Pittsburgh next. They come back home. The Steelers come over here, and and they go against Pittsburgh. I think that's a win. I think it's another. Again, I don't want to get too much into like the emotional angle or whatever, but I just think it's another type of revenge game where you should have won that game last year, and I think a lot of these Patriots came out of that thinking that. Um, but you couldn't stop turning the ball over. I mean, everybody was dropping it. It was a rough game in terms of ball security overall, not just for Ramondre Stevenson, but he had a bad game too. And it was just a game that everyone had to have come out thinking, man, we could have won that. And we should have won that. But instead, we didn't. And now here you are against a home crowd with the ability to kind of set that thing right. All right. Now, additionally, I just don't know that I believe in the Steelers as an overall concept right now. Um, Patrick Graham came in. He's their new defensive coordinator. And I like him, actually. I like the defense there. I think it's going to be pretty solid. He's got more talent than he had in Vegas, so much so that literally this guy came in an intro conference and thanked the general manager not once but twice, two times for the talent on that team. I think he's going to enjoy himself. I think he's going to have a good time. I think the front can create problems, but I just don't think the secondary is equipped to handle New England's expanded weapons in the receiver room. And I don't believe in Aaron Rodgers anymore. If I ever did, look, I've never been the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan. He had a couple good years for sure. He had one good playoff run in his career, just the one. Um, and now he's like 42 or whatever, right? Um, his arm hasn't looked great. His mobility is not great. Um, he's just, he makes good decisions, but he's kind of become check down Charlie, as Drake likes to call it, right? And I just don't believe in the team overall. So I've got the Patriots coming out of this with a win. I think they're going to start the season in 2-0, and then they head in. Oops, sorry, revenge game. Oh, see, I forgot I had these great graphics, man. I like work on these graphics and then I forget they exist, and I just started talking. So yeah, it's a revenge game. Last year wasn't a talent problem; it was a turnover disaster. Absolutely true. This roster remembers too is a thing. Like a lot of these guys were here last year. A lot of these guys remember what it felt like walking out of that stadium with a loss. So, um, next they go down to Jacksonville. And I think this is a tight game. Okay. I have a lot of respect for Jacksonville. They're a young team. They're talented. They've got a very smart head coach. And they made things work last year that I didn't think they were going to be able to, right? They went in there into the season with a first year GM, first year head coach, first year offensive coordinator, first year defensive coordinator. And when I mean first year, I mean it was their first year doing the job. And they came out with a good looking team. All right. They played well. I thought they were an excellent team. I really liked their defense, primarily driven by Devin Lloyd, who's not there any longer. Um, so that's part of my question about this team is I really loved their defense last year, and Devin Lloyd had a career year, um, and he's no longer there. Now this is a guy who all pro last year. All right, and he headed out to Carolina. Carolina's going to have a much improved defense this year between him and Jalen Phillips. Um, but he had 74 tackles and 5 interceptions. That was a real impressive thing, right? You see 10 QB hits, 1.5 sacks. He's not a guy that's going to get after the quarterback. He is a linebacker, right? Gets out there, plays the midsection of the field, kind of a lot of activity. Talented player out of Utah, first round pick a few years back. Um, he's a good player, and they just let him walk right out the door. So this year, I think they're a talented program, but I think there are some clear pressure points. Okay. Underwhelming in the running back room after letting Travis Etienne walk. Another guy that went to New Orleans um, that took off and left, and now he's in New Orleans as their lead running back. And that leaves these guys with Bashal Tootin. So, Bashal Tugboat Tootin, by the way, fun nickname. I liked Tootin in the draft last year. Not like he wasn't my favorite running back. I don't think he was in my top 5 favorite running backs in the draft last year. I don't think he was in my top 10 favorite running backs in the draft last year, but he's proven to be pretty productive in the NFL. He was good for the Jags last year, obviously good enough that they felt okay about letting Travis Etienne walk. They brought in Chris Rodriguez to back him up. Chris Rodriguez has never really been like a starter level type of running back. So you're really making a bet on guys who aren't real proven. Um, and then you've got questions in the receiver room. Also, I mean, there was talk about Brian Thomas Jr. being traded all summer. Now, ultimately, he wasn't, obviously, but it's hard to come. Sometimes it's hard for a young player to deal with that sort of thing, right? Jacoby Myers has always been a solid player, and solid. He's not an all-pro. He's not a guy you build a game plan around or whatever, really. And if you're building a game plan around Jacoby Myers, the rest of your offense is probably pretty trash. Um, and then you got Parker Washington in the slot, who again, another guy I really liked in his draft cycle 4 or 5 years ago, but not a guy you build a game plan around, right? He's a little jitterbug type of guy, kind of a running back and a wide receiver, a wide receiver and a running back body, if you will. Um, I think their left tackle is questionable, and I definitely think their secondary is questionable. I'm not a Travis Hunter believer. And thus far, he's really done nothing to make me look bad by saying I'm not a Travis Hunter believer. So I, you know, I'll believe it when I see it, and we'll kind of go from there. Um, but yeah, I think this team can be got. I have respect for them, I really do, but I just don't. I'm not worried about them. Okay, so we come out of week 3, 3-0. Now, that's when New England heads to Buffalo and things change a little bit. I've got us with a loss there. Now, I have a lot of respect for Buffalo. I think that what we're going to do is split the season with Buffalo. And so essentially, it's as simple as I gave each team the home win. Now, it worked out the other way around last year. And, that was fairly interesting, right? But this year, I just think, both teams probably are going to be able to pull out wins in front of their home crowd. Now, we do have to talk a little bit about Buffalo's offseason because Buffalo's offseason was interesting, right? They fire Sean McDermott and replace him with his offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. Give me one second. Seems like a great time to remind you guys the skull crushing espresso by FDC, Fire Department Coffee. I think it's Fire Department Coffee, Fire Department Company, FDC for sure. Um, Good stuff. Pretty much all I drink these days. Excellent. Not a sponsor yet, but if they'd like to be, just get at me. Um, and so you're not a sponsor yet, but if they'd like to be, get at me. Violent Gentlemen. All right, Violent Gents. Go check out their stuff. Violent Gentlemen Hockey Club is what it started out as. It's kind of added the jujitsu stuff. I think Violent Gentlemen pairs perfectly with football also. So check out their stuff. Um, so anyway, getting into the Buffalo's offseason, right? So they replaced him with Joe Brady. They actually promoted the GM that put that roster together, Brandon Bean. Not really promoted, but they gave him a raise and kind of like, you know, pat on the back publicly, right? So he would kind of empowered him a little bit. And then they brought in Jim Leonard as a new defensive coordinator. Um, so a lot going on from a coaching perspective over there. They also went out, they picked up DJ Moore to add to the receiver group. Give me 1 second. Oh no, where did my notes just go? Anyway, there we go. They brought in Jim Leonard, new defensive coordinator. People are very excited about him. Okay, the football nerds, if you will, are incredibly excited about him. Now, personally, I remember using him in Madden back when he was a free safety, and watching him on the field and so forth. Played safety for a number of years in the NFL. Has risen quickly. He's highly respected throughout the NFL. Again, one of the kind of defensive minds that people are most excited about right now. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what he does there. Um, they've got a very talented defensive line rather, right? Fairly deep also. But I have questions about the linebacker and secondary groups. Matt Milano left in the offseason. Um, Trey White didn't come back. Now Trey White is, ancient in terms of NFL cornerbacks. But they still just don't have a lot except Christian Benford. I'm not a Maxwell Hairston believer. I wasn't when they drafted him, and I'm not now. Give me 1 second. All right, and I'm back. Sorry about that interruption, real quick. Cat's testing both my patience and the resilience of some of the things in my house. Um, anyway, there's been a lot of change there. I'm not sold on the secondary. I'm not really sold on like kind of the back seven, right? Um, so there are some questions to answer, and Jim Leonard's got his work cut out for him. Um, if he proves to be everything that the football nerds think he is, then they're going to be a tough unit to play. Um, Adding DJ Moore offensively gives them a better target than they've had. I think they overpaid a little bit for him, and that kind of screwed with the market a little bit throughout the summer. But I just don't think that that they quite got enough firepower, and that's kind of the line for the Bills every year. But here we go. Sorry, new voices, same expectations, and that's fair. Look, these guys, Buffalo is not happy with a playoff appearance. They're not happy with even a playoff win anymore. They want to win the big game, and that's what they're hoping to do. So, the end of the first four games here, I've got 3 wins, 1 road loss, and that Seattle wins a big road win if they can pull that out. I think the Jacksonville game would be a big win if they can pull that out. This is again, it is a much tougher schedule this year, but that doesn't mean that I think that they're going to just absolutely fall apart all of a sudden. Um, so they roll into Vegas 3-1. They roll out of Vegas 4-1. Um, Another little bit of a revenge game type theme, right? Um, Vegas beat them last year, opening week. It was it was a tough game. Um, and especially when you saw what Vegas kind of went on to be. But week one has, weird results all the time. Weird shit happens all the time. So, um, Vegas is a team with a lot of things going on. Okay. Now they've got Fernando Mendoza, first overall pick. By now, week five, will he be pushing to start? Is he starting out of the gates? Is Kirk Cousins going to be happy with that if he is? Um, they managed to keep Max Crosby there on accident. They kind of backed into it, right? And so it's hard to see what the relationship's going to be there, right? There had been talk about recent dust up in practice between Crosby and Cousins, where Crosby had hit Cousins, in the play of the game. You're not supposed to hit the quarterbacks in practice. Crosby did anyway, that sort of thing. And it was, uh, there was speculation that it was a call to get him out of town. And maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to tell, but that locker room could be a real problem. Um, I think that, obviously retaining him and then doing the things they did around him, they're going to have a really good group if they can figure it out. But that's a big if. Their secondary group, a lot of questions, okay? They're a young team. They've got, they added some real youth into that secondary in the draft. Drafted safety Trey Dance Stukes out of Arizona, a guy that people really liked. He was just older. He's like 26. Corner Hezekiah Masses, you might remember in the spring, I talked a lot about him. I really liked him. And then Jermon McCoy, who was an interesting prospect, cornerback out of Tennessee. Most people thought he had top 10 talent. The question was about his injury history. They were able to get him with the first pick on day 3. Incredible value. And if those guys work out, that could be a real secondary of the future. But of the future, not right now. Okay, they're still young kids right now. They're still trying to come together. And again, I think that's a secondary of the future, right? So if you're the Patriots, you get out there against Vegas. This is a home game again, by the way. Um, you get out there against Vegas and you just throw. You throw and 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 you throw until they stop you. And I don't think that they're going to stop you. Um, So yeah, I think you get out there, Drake May, the offense, have a great day, and I think that they lead the Patriots to what might end up being kind of a lopsided win, and start this season or this section of the season rather, the second four games, very strong. Right, this is essentially the second quarter of the season, if you will, and despite the fact it's now 17 games, it's kind of the second quarter, right? And they come out of this 4-1 with a real strong win against the Raiders. This is kind of the easier section of their schedule right here. The little bit of a back to back against easier teams, right? Because they've got the Jets coming up next, and they come out of the Jets game 5-1. I think they blow up the Jets. I think the Jets are going to struggle a lot this year. I've got them with 3 wins total on the year. And I just think it's going to be a tough year for them. They improved a little bit this offseason. Obviously, they had 3 first round picks that they brought in, which makes me look. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little jealous of the Jets. I'm a draft or Jets fans rather. I am a huge fan of the draft. Kind of a big draft nerd. Have kind of always been, and you know, yeah, we've got 6 championship banners, but those guys have seen their team pick 3 times in the first round, twice, and they're going to see it again next year. Right now, the Jets are projected to have 3 top 15 picks next year. We'll see if it works out that way, but um, they're still I mean, they're right in the middle of an organizational reset, basically, right? Aaron Glenn fired pretty much everyone around him. Um, Kind of refilled those positions and is on one of the hotter seats in the NFL. Um, they recorded 0 interceptions from their entire secondary last season, and they just didn't add a lot there. So I'm not sure. I mean, they did bring in Minka Fitzpatrick, and he's a guy who, he's had some he's had some good years, but he's also a bit of a locker room kind of like just unhappy sort of guy, I gather. And a little bit of a locker room malcontent is kind of the word I'm looking for, I think. And I just don't think that he's going to be enough, even if he has a good year. He's a talented kid. I like him. I just don't think that bringing in just him is enough. And Demario Davis, they've got a new defensive coordinator. There's a lot going on there. And none of it's great. And they don't have a quarterback. Okay, they've got Geno Smith. Like Geno Smith was good for a few years in Seattle, um, and we haven't seen him be good anywhere else, including in New York in the past. I'm not a believer in him. I don't think they're going to resurrect his career. He might be a little bit of a good tank commander. Okay, um, Jacoby Brissett style of quarterback. But I just don't think he's not going to be the answer. He's not going to lead them to a winning record. He's not going to lead them to the playoffs, any of that sort of thing. Um, I think that New England's going to have a fairly easy time with the Jets here. Um, and right there, you can see it all outlined there. Uh, Fitzpatrick, right? Belton, um, Brian Duker. That's the new defensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn will call the plays. Duker is, I thought it was funny that Demario Davis, the new linebacker, is actually older than the new defensive coordinator. Um, they went 3-14 last year, and I've got them with another 3-14 record this year. I've got the Patriots sweeping them entirely. So, uh, Patriots come out of that with an easy win. All right. Then, game in Chicago against the Bears. Listen, I've got this as a loss. I think it's going to be a tough game. Um, I think it works out to be a very high scoring game. All right. Chicago, not in incredible defense. It's not awful, All right, we're not talking Cincinnati Bengals level defense, right? At least 2025 Cincinnati Bengals. I hear this year they should be a bit better. Um, but I still think this just it has the markings of a high scoring game, and it has the markings of like a kind of a long term rivalry of sorts, right? These guys went in the same draft, both in the top three, and I think that they're a little bit motivated to beat the other. Um, Williams is a different style of quarterback than Drake, though. Williams, he kind of enjoys throwing those difficult throws, and he makes them in defining moments. But he also misses them. I mean, it's kind of a coin flip situation where people remember the really good ones as long as they were recent, and they forget the bad ones, and so forth. But it's about a coin flip. It's a 50-50 thing with Caleb. But here's the thing is we've seen him do that uh, successfully and win games with it. 7 game-winning drives specifically. Drake, on the other hand, I don't know that he's Captain Comeback yet, right? I don't know that he's Mr. Clutch. I don't. I love the kid. He's good. Okay, and I'm excited about the future with him, but I also want to be realistic. I don't know that he's the guy in crunch time yet. I haven't seen it. I just haven't. I'm going to talk about this later too, in terms of the wintry weather. Right? There's a couple things right now. Like I love Drake. He's good. He's a Pro Bowl talent, and maybe better than that. But there are a couple things that I've got to be realistic about with him, and I haven't seen it in late game, clinch the game situations. I've seen it once. He led one game winning drive, um, and it wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't underwhelming. It was whelming. I was whelmed. Okay. Um, Caleb, on the other hand, man, he's got the cojones, right? He's got it when the game's on the line and he's out there just slinging it, right? Brett Favre style. Like that's kind of the big difference between these guys right now. And it's not that I think Caleb's better. I just right now, if I think this game comes down to a fourth quarter drive, comes down to high scoring 30s, maybe even 40 points each team, and it comes down to that late game situation. They're in Chicago, and Caleb's got the ball. Oh man, it's tough, but I see him doing it, and I just don't know that Drake is Mr. Clutch yet. I want to see it. Okay, I want to see it. This is the year that he's going to show it, too. All right, it's a tough schedule, but this is the year he's going to show it. So high score, bet the over on this game. The last drive wins. These are two talented guys. All right, they are. But again, 7 comeback wins, 6 game winning drives. The numbers are there for Caleb. The history's there for Caleb. I've seen him do it over and over again. And I just haven't seen it out of Drake yet. So I think Chicago ultimately steals the game. Um, and maybe not even steals. It's just a slugfest swinging back and forth, and it just ends up the wrong way, right? So that's my prediction on this game. Patriots come out of this one in week 7, 5-2. Give me one second. Sorry, trying to upload graphics. Having no production team is what it is. Um, there we go. And let's get into the next one. All right. All right. So, moving on to the next game. The next game, another little bit of a bye week for the Patriots. Not an actual bye week, but they'll be playing Miami, so it might as well be. Miami's probably going to have the worst roster in the league. They're building around Malik Willis, and I'm not sure how much I buy into that. we've seen Malik Willis be fine for the Packers for like 5 minutes last year. It's not enough for me to say, oh, yeah, we should build our team around this guy, right? But it apparently was enough for Jeff Hafley and the Dolphins to do that. So we'll see how it goes there. I'm again, I'm not sold on the Malik Willis show, and I think that this is a Caleb Douglas is tracking to be like wide receiver one on this team. I actually like Caleb Douglas. I liked him in the pre-draft process. Solid wide receiver. Surprising he would be the number one wide receiver on any team in his first year. But it's that bad in Miami. Okay, their best receivers probably Chris Bell, maybe, but we're not sure what he's going to be. And he tore his ACL, and even when he comes back, he's going to need a lot of work. All right, even if he were healthy, he would need a lot of work to play in the NFL. All right, a little bit of kind of like a gadget guy in college, used a lot of athleticism. And again, you just don't have the separation in your athleticism and your opponent's athleticism in college is way greater than it is in the NFL. Okay, you're it's a lot of there's a lot of guys in college that are never going to play in the NFL. And excuse me. Um, when you're out there in the NFL itself, you just can't rely on that really. Um, so it can be a shocker for some of those guys. So we'll see how Chris Bell is when he comes back from injury eventually. But in the meanwhile, Caleb Douglas and I believe what's his name, Washington, are tracking to be the top wide receivers in this game, or on this team rather. Devon A. Chain is going to be the player that they're going to build the entire offense around. Okay, I've heard Jeff Hafley out there talking about he could touch the ball 40 times a game. 40. That's like a 90s bell cow running back type of numbers, okay? 40 times a game would be insane. And Devon A. Chain is not a bell cow back. He's not. He just isn't. Okay? He's like 5'9", a buck 80. He's gonna get wrecked out there. I feel bad for him. I honestly do. I'm not predicting, not cheering for, not wanting, not trying to, will it to happen. But man, I worry about that guy's durability if he's touching the ball 40 times a game. Okay, I don't see how he makes it this far healthy, honestly, by the time we see him the first time. Um, just workload, durability for a small body like that. You all know how I feel about Tyreek Hill. He's the biggest piece of trash in sports. Um, but last year they talked to him about, like, what do you need to do different in the run game? And he said something like, stop giving it to A-Chain in short yard situations between the tackles or whatever. And he was 100% right. Okay. A-Chain's not that guy that carries your team. He's the guy who touches it 10 times a game and has three explosive, crazy runs and kind of keeps the whole defense backpedaling, right? And sets the stage for the guy who is the starter. Um, man, it's not going to be good there. All right. Now, the teardown, look, it's full on, right? The tank for Arch, whatever the slogan's gonna be. That could be a thing here. 180 million almost in dead cap money. Tua sent out of town. Tyreek cut. Jalen Waddle traded to the Broncos. You've seen veterans leave. We've got a whole new regime going on here. I mean, I look. They shouldn't surprise anybody. By the way, I'm just going to take my small victory lap here. None of this should have surprised you guys. This time last year, there were people talking about, oh, well, maybe Miami will be good. And I'm like, no, they will not. Okay, I told you here. No, they are going to be a dumpster fire next season. We're at this time next year. We'll be talking about why they were a dumpster fire, and all of that. So none of this should have surprised you, but this is this is their current reality. They're rebuilding from all of that. They're trying to build around Devon A. Chain, um, and I just don't know that. Obviously they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Okay, they're going to be competing for the first overall pick. This is going to be an easy win. It's going to be a big win, and I also think eh, Patriots fans, a lot of Patriots fans, are hesitant to predict wins in Miami because historically the team struggled there a lot, right? But I just think Drake May. He's a young kid. He's a Southern kid. We have seen him struggle in cold weather winter games. He's gone into Florida a couple times and looked good. So I don't think that he has those early kind of hot weather struggles, if you will. Um, this is a scenario where I'm totally comfortable betting on him having a great day. Okay, this is one of those games that you go in, you have a good season with a tough schedule, but you go into a game like this and you kind of let your offense show out, right? And kind of let them just kind of let them uh, pad their resume, right, for the season. So I think that's kind of what happens here. And they head into Green Bay, and they're 7-2 walking into Green Bay. Now, not into Green Bay, sorry. With Green Bay walking into Foxborough. This game is at home. Green Bay, they suffered some losses in the offseason, right? We've got one of those guys, Romeo Dobbs, on our roster right now. Dontavian Wicks headed to Philly. Jaden Reed, injury issues. And I'm just not sure about the receiver group there. Okay, now you guys know that in the Matthew Golden draft cycle, which is a couple years ago, I wasn't sold on him. All right, I thought that he was a um, fraudulent kind of first round talent. That it was all run off of a 140-yard dash. That I wasn't sure that was his real time. I've never seen that play speed out of Matthew Golden. Um, Last season he had an underwhelming rookie season, and or sorry, he had an underwhelming rookie season. He's been underwhelming since he's played there. I'm just not. I'm not sold on the Matthew Golden experience. Okay, Christian Watson. He's dealt with injury issues pretty consistently, and so is Jaden Reed. Tucker Kraft, also their tight end, dealt with injury issues last year. Micah Parsons, currently dealing with injury issues. Okay, um, and who is their second outside corner? I don't know. Um, so if Parsons isn't back, if he's not ready, if he is not quite himself, right? We used to see guys come back from these ACL type injuries and they would kind of be dragging a little bit, right? For the first year. They wouldn't quite look themselves for the first year. It wouldn't be until the second year back that they really started being, who we knew them to be. And so who knows how long it's going to take Micah Parsons to come back from an injury like that and and kind of get back to his old self, right? So we'll see how it goes in Green Bay. Um, I'm going to leave the door open to say this is something I could see myself changing this pick at some point in time if the defense looks really good. If um, what's his name, Micah Parsons, comes back and if he looks good, and we'll see how things go for that team. I right now see a win for the Patriots. So that sends them to Germany in week 10, where they will face the Lions in what is technically a home game for the Lions, but it's really an away game for both guys. Um, there's a lot of folks, again, that see this as an easy win for the Lions. Okay, I saw a lot of home team reporters. And if you want to pick the difference between my projections for the Patriots at 13-4 and a lot of other folks who are, it's kind of like a 10-7, 11-6 sort of line, this is probably the game that you'd pick along with the Seattle game in week one. Because if I flip my picks on those, I'd be what, 11-6 prediction. But no, I see a win here too. Okay, I'm just not, man. Detroit's got some elite individual talent. Okay, they've got some. They've got a really good rotation on the defensive line. They've got what's his name, Jack Campbell at linebacker, excellent. Alex Anzalone, I believe, just left this offseason, but Jack Campbell is an excellent young linebacker. They've got Brian Branch in the secondary, one of my favorite draft picks over the past, say, like 5 years. Um, So they've got difference making players. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, in the edge group, but that gives them, a difference maker at every level of the defense. But the depth there isn't great, particularly in the secondary. Having just cut Terry and Arnold following his legal situation, and I'm just not sure the depth is there on the defensive side of the ball. And then the offensive side of the ball, you've got Drew Betzing coming in as the new offensive coordinator. Kelvin Shepard will be back as the defensive coordinator, but a coach like Dan Campbell is kind of only as good as the coordinators around him, right? Because he's not a play caller. He's not like a, offensive or defensive guru or whatever. He's kind of like a rah rah, like get behind me and I'm a leader of men sort of guy, right? Kind of like Vrabel. And so you're often judged by the coordinators around you and how well are they doing their jobs. And I just don't know about Petzing. I'm not. I'm again another thing I'm not sold on. Um, if you look at it, the 3-year rushing totals with Petzing, oh, that's not accurate. Is that? Do I have one? Yeah. Well, that's about the line. But anyway, um, the 3-year rushing totals, they looked all right on Petzing's resume. They look fine, but then you go back and you look. The 2025 Arizona offense finished 23rd in scoring, 24th in offensive DVOA, 23rd in EPA per play, 24th in success rate, and 31st in rushing yards per game. Arizona fans hated this guy. Hated this guy. Excuse me. No, I know Arizona fans that, oh, they hated this guy all season last year, just complaining about him constantly. Threw a party when he left town. Um, and look, the criticism was real. Okay, conservative, predictable sequencing, inconsistent situational play calling, poor fourth quarter stretches, and he just had an overall inability to manufacture enough productive touches for guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. All right, when you take great talent and turn it into trash, that's not doing your job. That's actually the opposite of doing your job. I want an offensive coordinator that can take a fifth round pick and turn him into a Pro Bowl, all pro type player. Not a guy who takes a top five pick and turns him into a, you know, guy who we're wondering if he was a bust, right? So, fair qualifiers. There's a lot of injuries there. Kyler Murray missed 12 games. James Conner missed 14, and four of their starting linemen missed at least five. Now, Petzing did adapt, but this team has their own questions. The offensive line, a little bit of a work in progress. Panay Sewell's going to swap sides. That's not always easy. He was a left tackle historically in college, but that doesn't mean that he'll be great at it in the NFL, right? There's plenty of left tackles in college that swap to the right side because it's a little easier. Or don't clip that. But Blake Miller coming in, you guys know I was a big fan of him pre-draft process, and Cade Mays, new guy at center. So there's a lot of moving parts there in Detroit, and there's a lot of projection. Okay, I've never been a big golf guy, and here's the thing. Last year, he completed 76.5% of his passes when he was kept clean. Third among qualified quarterbacks. Under pressure, that number fell to 41%. 41.4 to be specific. That was 23rd. It's one of the biggest differences in the league. If you can get pressure on this guy, you can take him. Um, Now, they've got guards that are coming back. Tate Ratledge on one side, and I didn't write down the name of the other guy, but they're fine, I guess. But I just think that we're going to be able to get pressure on Goff immediately and kind of screw things up, right? So I think we leave. We end up leaving Germany 9-2. Okay, a lot of people are going to be calling this a loss again. I don't see that happening. I also think that they're going to end up depending on Jameer Gibbs a lot, and he's one of the best backs in football, and he hasn't really had serious injury issues or any of that. So maybe you can ride him, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, look, last year his snap share rose to 67%, touched the ball 320 times. And we saw his rushing average drop off a little bit from 5.6 to 5.0. Now, a lot of that's offensive line related. A lot of running back production in general is offensive line related. We know that. But Detroit traded David Montgomery, who was his backup, and they replaced him with Isaiah Pacheco, who he hasn't been great since he hurt his leg in 2024, right? He's been very, very average, actually. So is Gibbs going to have to actually play even more? Is that going to hurt his production on a per touch basis? We'll see. Um, what I will say is that last year we saw as the year dragged on, the rushing production dipped. Okay, and normally you'll see an offensive line kind of start to gel and maybe start getting figured out as time goes on. We saw the opposite out of the running game anyway. 136.3 yards per game over the first 9 games, 101.2 over the final 8. Now that's a drop off 35 yards per contest. The Lions also went 3-5 during that stretch. So when they can successfully ride that running game, they're going to be good. But as the season drags on, it's not always good for them. All right, this in week 10 will be both of our 10th game. 136 over the first 9, 101 over the final 8. That window started in their 10th game. Let's see how it goes. Okay, but I've got to win here. I think that, Germany cancels out the home field effect, obviously. I don't think there's any reason to think that the Patriots struggle there just because they struggled somewhere else a couple years ago or whatever. Um, this might officially be a Detroit home game, but I think it's a win for the Patriots. I think they come out of Germany happy. They're 8-2, and I love the timing of the bye week. Okay, I always want it a little bit past like the halfway point of the season. All right, before attrition really starts to pile up, you kind of get guys a little bit of rest. Maybe guys who are injured, that's an extra week that you pick up that they can be healing. I really like that placement. I always hated like week like 4 or 5 or whatever, like the first week that they start doing buys, those early buys. Oh, I feel like those aren't good. Um, so you come into the bye real strong, 8-2. You're got 7 games ahead of you on the schedule, but you're feeling good about this season right now. I feel like they'd be riding high. I feel like Drake May's probably having a good year at this point. I feel like the connection with AJ Brown and that trade looks excellent. They're probably high up in the AFC, if not leading the AFC. They may be leading the AFC East at this point also. Um, I think they come into the bye week feeling good. They head out to LA, and I think they get punched in the mouth and brought back a little bit down to reality. Okay. I think, and I've used this term probably too many times for one episode, but man, LA's got to want a little bit of revenge on us, right? We came up against them. They were uh, they were in rough shape. Their top two tackles had been down all season. They were on tackle like 6 or something like that, and the defense just got after them. They never really had a chance. And now they're going to be at home, and they're going to be looking for revenge. It's just plain and simple, right? So here's the thing: is the Chargers, they're already dealing with injury issues. All right. The other day at practice, Tyler Biadasz, who is the new center, brought in specifically because I think Herbert wanted him, is what I had heard. He goes down with I believe it was an ACL tear, out indefinitely is the word. Now, this kind of a silver lining situation because Jake Slaughter is going to be a good center. And the Chargers were kind of prepping him for a left guard competition, which it kind of reminded me of the whole Jared Wilson thing last year, right? Um, Brought in Jared Wilson, played him out of position, and he looked like crap. Now we're going to play him in position. I expect him to be much, much improved. Jake Slaughter was never a center. He does not have the body or play strength to be a left guard. Sorry, he was never a left guard. He doesn't have the body or play strength to be a left guard. He's always been a center, always. And he was one of the most pro-ready guys in this draft too. Not even just on the offensive line, not even just at center in the entire draft. So I really like this for him. He's going to be able to slot right in there. He's going to be able to start from week one. And Tyler Biadasz might end up being the one moving when and if he comes back this year. So I'm not, you know, it's not that I'm like down on the Patriots or whatever, but I think that they come cruising out of the bye week. I think they feel good. They go out to LA and they just get popped in the mouth by an angry LA team that that didn't like the way their last season ended. So, oh, what is this? Oh, yeah. Well, um, I forgot I made this one. Here's the thing about too about LA. The question I have, and I actually kind of would like to reserve the right to change this one. Mike McDaniel's. Somebody explain this to me in the comments. Please explain this to me. Why does this guy get so much love? All right, the football nerds, if you will, just kind of the football world has so much belief in Mike Daniel, and you're hearing a lot preseason about how he's going to change the Chargers and how the Chargers are going to be this electrifying offense with him because of him. Da 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 da. He had one good season as an OC in San Francisco that did not call plays. Shanahan still called the plays. He had a 2023 season in Miami that was good, but also built around some crazy talented wide receivers, some super fast guys. And, they had a good left tackle then, Teron Armstead. They had a solid line then. And, he did have, a very exciting flare up kind of in Miami. But Otherwise, this guy just doesn't have a lot of like wild success to talk about. And yet he gets a lot of love. And I'm just not sure that I see it. So, look, there's a lot of, well, there's a lot of, reason to pick both teams, I guess. I'm ending up on the LA side of things because I think their line's bound to be better. I think they will need this game both for their own feelings, right? For the for the sake of the fact that they just got pounded by the Patriots mercilessly last playoffs, and I think that yeah, I think there are questions there, but I think that ultimately they're gonna win this game, and I think it's almost a good thing. I think you don't want to have everything be too easy. Every now and then you want to get punched in the mouth just to remember what the taste of your own blood's like, right? And I think that it ends up working out better in the long run for the Patriots. Now, I will say there are concerns on the inside of that offensive line, even if Tyler Biotish had been healthy, and he's not. Cole Strange currently is projected to start at right guard. He's a Patriots and Miami Dolphins reject. All right, cast off from both teams. And the Patriots did not have much of an offensive line last year when we kicked him out of here. They've got Trevor Penning potentially starting on the left side. Penning is he was a talented tackle prospect at one point in time. He's been a bit of a headache in the NFL. So we'll see how it all goes there. Again, this is another one that it's going to be a close game, and I'd like to reserve the right to change my vote later. Um, Now we come back to the Buffalo Bills' second game, which I'm going to breeze over a little bit. It's all the same stuff I talked about earlier, except this one's at home in New England, and I'm just going to give it to New England at home. Um, it's really, again, coin flip game, push type of thing. And I'm just going with a split and home and home. Then week 14, we come in 10-3, or not. We come in, they come in, and we're 10-3. And then we're hosting the Vikings. And listen, the Vikings are a solid team, 1 through like 50. Um, it's those last three in the quarterback room that I'm not sure about. All right, Kyler Murray's the starter right now. J.J. McCarthy is, I'm not sure if he's the second or third. They've got Carson Wentz, and they've got undrafted kid Max. I don't remember his last name. Kid out of TCU, I think, though. No, Minnesota. Minnesota. Sorry. Kid out of Minnesota. Like, that's where he went to college, too. Anyway, so I'm not 100% sure about that. In fact, I'm maybe even sure that they're not great. They've got great wide receivers, right? Really, really nice wide receiver room, actually. Justin Jefferson, Jawan Jennings, the JJs, JJ McCarthy. They got a lot of J's there. Justin Jennings, Justin Jefferson, Jawan Jennings, and the Jordan Addison being their third wide receiver. Maybe their second. Jawan Jennings is their third, whatever. But they've got three really good ones. They've got Hawkinson at tight end. They've got the weapons. Aaron Jones, very productive running back. Got a solid offensive line. They've got a good defense, an incredible defensive coordinator in Brian Flores. But I'm just, again, this is going to hinge on the quarterback out there, and I don't think it's going to look pretty. Um, let's talk about, you know, I Kyler Murray specifically. Okay, this is a guy who I make a lot of jokes about, whether it be his height, whether it be his video game addictions, reported video game addiction type of situation, whatever it might be. But there's reality to that. Okay, when you look at the splits for Kyler Murray, the Call of Duty joke lines are kind of a real thing. Um, now, You look at the sharp monthly contrast, right? October, 98.3 passer rating. December, 84.4. This is throughout his whole career in Arizona. He drops off the further he gets into a season. For those of you keeping track, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 releases on October 23rd. Patriots making game is December 10th. Kyler Murray should be deep into things by then. We'll see. We'll see how it goes out there. But the quarterback situation they've got going on out there just doesn't give me a lot of hope for Minnesota. Um, I think that it's going to be rough for them this year. Now, defensively, again, Flores, he's holding it together. He's an excellent defensive coordinator. He'd be a head coach if he wasn't suing the NFL. Um, but it surprises me as a defensive coordinator while he's suing the NFL, to be honest. But they've got a lot of questions there, right? Harrison Smith, he's hasn't been brought back. Jamal Adams out for the year. Jonathan Grenard traded. Allen and Hargrave released, moved on. You've got Caleb Banks and Dominique Orange, or Big Citrus, uh, coming in second and third round picks to play defensive line. And I mean, Banks has already looked inconsistent, as you would expect a guy with his level of experience to look. And it's just, there are a lot of questions. And I think their secondary also has a lot of questions. So the weapons are real. The QB, I'm pretty sure they're not real. And again, it's going to be a tough season for these guys. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up images for the next set. All right, because we come out of the Vikings game and head to Kansas City, and that's where I've got us picking up our fourth loss. Sorry. Um, I think the game in Kansas City is going to be a tough one. I think they're going to be looking to kind of remind the league of who they are, if you will. And I think that they could be having a very good season. Look, they've added some things over there. We talked about Kenneth Walker when we talked about the Seattle Seahawks. Well, Kansas City is where he ended up, and Kansas City has needed a productive running game for a long time. They also need better wide receivers. They need a lot of things over there right now because they're kind of getting older, and their main weapon, Travis Kelsey, is getting older. He's in his final year. He's kind of announced that to folks, but he also looks great. All right, word on the street is that he came in looking svelte, looking a lot better than he did last year. That he's probably going to try and go out with a bang in this final season. Pat Mahomes already back out there. He tore ACL and LCL less than a year ago, and this guy's running around doing everything in practice. It's incredibly impressive. Um, and again, bringing in Kenneth Walker. Like, it's going to be a good season. It's still got one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the league. It's got one of the best running backs in the league. Rasheed Rice, if he could stop committing crimes for 5 minutes, is a very talented receiver. They've got a reasonable offensive line in front of him. They've got questions. They've got work to do a little bit. It's not great, and they've got to remain healthy. But it's a solid offense, and it's always going to be a good offense when Patrick Mahomes is at the wheel. Okay, now I think Walker does change this offense. All right, last year they're 25th in rushing yards per game. They bring in the Super Bowl MVP, pay him up to 45 million. You expect him to change that. All right, you're not gonna be able to just sit back and wait on the pass, right? You got to stack up that box sometimes, and that's going to give Patrick Mahomes options. So it's like you give Patrick Mahomes a very legit running back, and it changes the offense. It's going to be much more dangerous, even despite the fact They don't have great receivers. Now, the real question in this room is going to be again the back seven of that defense. Okay, we've talked about this with other teams. They've got a very solid defensive line. They've added some pieces there, even bringing in guys like Kyrie's Tonga. But you know, with Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie walking out the door, you're replacing him with Mansour Delane and Jaden Kennedy, and Noel Williams, second year player. And it's just they have a history of developing these sorts of guys, but to rely on that entirely, man, that puts you in a tough spot. We also saw Leo Chenal leave, who was underrated, very quality linebacker. I think again, I think maybe a little bit underrated. So um, there are going to be some defensive questions there, but we've seen those defensive questions be asked and answered in Kansas City before. I think they're going to be a top AFC contender, and I expect the Patriots to struggle in this game in Kansas City late in the year. Um, so I've got that down as the fourth loss. Fortunately, two of their last three games are against absolute cupcake teams who should be trying to lose. So easy kind of finish to the schedule. Um, right. So week 16, they come out of Kansas City. They head to New York. They pound the crap out of the hapless Jets once again. And, and that's that. Um, I'm not worried about this game at all. They're going to pound them. It's going to be easy. Um, and that's it. I mean, I kind of went all over all the reasons before. Um, Same in week 18. Same with the Dolphins. Easy game. So let's talk about the Denver game. All right. Look, New England's got to be sick and tired of all the like. If Bo Nix was here, Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos would have played in the. No, shut up. All right. Patriots are going to go in there, and they're going to want to shut this guy down. All right. Now they've got Nix. They brought in Jalen Waddle, and I brought in a whole bunch of I don't give a shit. The Patriots, I think, are going to go in there and stop that team. I think they're going to go in there and shut them down. I think they're going to. This is another game where it can be the difference between my record and a lot of other people's records. If you pick this game, the Seattle game, and the what was the other game? I said was the difference. The Detroit game in Germany. The other way, I'd be 10-7, not 13-4 on these guys. But I don't pick them the other way. I pick them this way. All right. I've never been a big believer in Bo Nix. He's like a fine average quarterback who's never going to be great. Jalen Waddle, he's fine. He's electrifying. He's exciting to watch. He's super quick and all that. Um, but I don't know that he's like a lead wide receiver one that I like in the way like a Jamar Chase is, or a Justin Jefferson, or an AJ Brown, or whatever. Jalen Waddle has always seemed to me like an excellent number two receiver. You want him to be a number two receiver. So Cortland Sutton's your number one receiver. Jalen Waddle might be a top 10 wide receiver two in the league, but Cortland Sutton is probably 20 to 25th best wide receiver one in the league, maybe something like that. I'm not impressed with that. Uh, they've got what's his name? RJ. It's not Hampton. I know it's not Hampton. Harvey. RJ Harvey. At running back, J.K. Dobbins is still there. He struggled with injuries throughout his career. Jonah Coleman in there at rookie. Look, I'm not going to change a pick on a rookie backup running back, but you guys know that I really like Jonah Coleman in the pre-draft process. I think he's going to give them an interesting bit. The Lions elite, but number one, the right guard spot's still weak, and number two, the Patriots absolutely dominated this line uh, in the playoffs. Okay, and again, the story was about the quarterback. but it could have been about the line because the Patriots absolutely dominated that line. I remember, uh, what was it, Christian Barmore coming off the line or off the field saying, number one offensive line, my ass. Because they absolutely dominated them in the playoffs. It wasn't just about the quarterback. So I think that they've got something to say here. I think that they've got this kind of between two easy wins. There's a chance that the Jets game is kind of like a trap game. It's in New York. Are they looking past the Jets at the Broncos? I don't know. Hopefully not. Um, but I've got these finals. I've got them finishing this regular season out with 3 wins. And here we go. Oh, this is the question about the playoff weather, which is a fair question. We get Miami with 40, 45 touches, but look, 13 and 4, 5 and 1 in the AFC East, split with Buffalo, sweep Miami, sweep New York, and we're going to call that a successful season. Okay. I'm about 90 minutes in on this recording. Thank you for hanging the entire time. If you did, I hope that you enjoyed the broadcast, you enjoyed the show a little bit. Leave a comment, um, say hi, leave a like, share it, tell your friends, etc. I will be back later on today with full preview of the AFC East. Until then, this is Randy with Snap Judgments. Have a great day.